Look around. You have been here before. You lived the blurry shapes, the shifting shadows, and the total helplessness of this room, but you have no way to prove it. For the first 36 months of your life, you were awake, processing data, and interacting with the world. Yet you retain zero conscious recall of this period, a phenomenon known as infantile amnesia. We're talking about over 25,000 hours of waking life. First steps, first words, intense emotional attachments, and entirely new sensory landscapes. All of it is gone. Every future memory and personality trait rests on a 3-year period we simply cannot visit in our own minds, which leaves us to figure out where those thousands of hours actually went. Over a century ago, early psychoanalysts proposed an answer. Sigmund Freud looked at this memory wipe and diagnosed it as a defense mechanism. He theorized that the shock of birth and the overwhelming emotions of infancy were highly traumatic. To protect the conscious mind, the brain supposedly repressed these experiences, locking them away in an inaccessible vault. Modern cognitive science paints a different picture. Researchers have found no evidence of a psychological barrier guarding hidden tapes of our infancy. Current research shifts the focus away from hidden trauma and toward the physical maturation of the brain. For decades, biologists operated on a fairly straightforward assumption about early memory. The belief was that an infant's hippocampus, the brain region responsible for encoding episodic memories, was simply too immature to hit record in the first place. A recent Yale fMRI study overturned this. Scanning awake infants, researchers found the hippocampus is highly active, processing new visual stimuli. It isn't crafting complex narratives yet. Instead, it engages in statistical learning, extracting raw patterns to understand the basic structures of vision and language. The infant brain hits record successfully. It just fails to keep the file. The amnesia is the result of a system actively deleting its own data. The mechanism behind this deletion is a process called neurogenesis. During our earliest years, the hippocampus rapidly generates a massive volume of new neurons. As these new neurons integrate into the hippocampus, they establish fresh synaptic connections. This aggressive growth physically disrupts and overwrites existing memory circuits. Older neural pathways are dismantled to make room for the new. This constant refresh allows the hippocampus to integrate new learning every day, preventing the brain from locking into rigid patterns only useful for a few months. If a baby retained strict memories of an environment it barely understands, it would suffer from overfitting. The mind would be too specialized for infancy to ever adapt to the changing rules of childhood. Infantile amnesia is an evolutionary trade-off. The brain sacrifices its earliest records to maintain the flexibility to grow. The physical brain eventually slows its aggressive rewiring. As children reach age 3 or 4, they begin to retain long-term memories. But the hardware alone does not explain this shift. Around this same period, a critical psychological development occurs, the emergence of the cognitive self. Children begin to recognize that they exist continuously across time. Before this, life is a stream of isolated sensory inputs. A loud noise happens. A sweet taste happens. With the emergence of the cognitive self, those events are now happening to a specific me. You cannot permanently save an autobiographical memory without an autobiography. The biological tape only keeps the file once it has a designated psychological folder to place it in. Even with a sense of self, children need external tools to cement their past. Researchers have shown that this permanence relies heavily on language and cultural dialogue. When parents reminisce with their toddlers about past events, asking questions and confirming details, they provide a vital linguistic scaffold. They actively teach the child how to structure their raw recollections. This dialogue translates chaotic sensory data into a canonical narrative. The child learns to organize their experiences with a beginning, a sequence of actions, and an emotional evaluation of what happened. A stabilizing biological network, an emerging sense of identity, and the learned structure of language combine. Together, they finally flip the brain's switch from temporary storage to permanent archive. We will never retrieve the specific images and sensations from our earliest days. Those thousands of hours were functionally recycled. They provided the raw material needed to map our brains and build our language. We lose the prologue of our lives so we can finally gain a coherent life story.